Hello, welcome to the Roundtable. We offer expert views and insights on current affairs. Please stay tuned for our comprehensive analysis on trending issues. Now I'm going to introduce today's guests. We are joined by Professor Kim Hannah. Welcome back to the Roundtable.
Thanks for having me again.
We are also joined by Professor Choi Soo-jin. Welcome.
I'm glad to be back.
Today we start with a story that we do not feel connected with. World wealthiest people, billionaires. The world's richest people have even gotten richer this year. According to Forbes, the world has 2,781 billionaires, and their combined wealth amounts to 14.2 trillion US dollars. It is up about $2 trillion from the previous year. Professor Choi, what is the biggest reason behind this trend?
Well, I think this is a typical example of rich get richer or winner take all phenomenon. You know, the super rich already have a great fortune, right? And they can invest a substantial amount of money buying stocks. And as we've recently seen in the stock market, there has been a blistering rally, right? So I think these people having kind of an additional boost from the stock market and become even richer.
So they're living on the interest of theirs.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Okay. And then who is the richest of all billionaires? Bernard Arnault, chairman of LVMH, the French luxury goods company, topped the list for the second year in a row. Tesla CEO Elon Musk came in second, followed by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. Professor Kim, Elon Musk is representing the up-and-coming industry like the EVs, but Bernard Arnault represents the old industry, luxury goods. I mean, I would assume that it should be reversed.
Yeah, and I think many people assume that Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, especially because so many people know more about him. And he has much more of a presence on social media and in the news. But Bernard Arnault is the chairman of the LVMH, which is a French luxury goods company that owns Louis Vuitton, Dior, Fendi, and even Marc Jacobs and Dom Perignon. So it owns a number of different things. And also he has a fortune of 233 billion US dollars. And he's built this for over 4 decades, whereas Elon Musk has been in the industry for a much shorter period of time. And also he's known for his aggressive business strategy, so his nickname's the Terminator. So it may explain part of the reason why he is the richest man in the world. And so I think all of this really shows that there is a high demand for electric vehicles, but there's also a high demand for luxury goods as well.
I see. Another interesting point to see is who is richer than a year ago. No one has gained more than Mark Zuckerberg, who has benefited from massive investment in artificial intelligence, AI. NVIDIA's Jensen Huang and OpenAI's Sam Altman are new to the list of the world's wealthiest people. So, Professor Choi, this addition to the list of the billionaire seems to reflect the new trend in the world industry.
There has been sort of an AI craze dominating the market. And have you heard of Fab 4?
Oh, no.
Now, if you are a stockholder, I think you are familiar with Mag 7.
Mag 7, yes.
Yeah, Magnificent 7. And it includes the companies such as Apple, Alphabet, and Tesla, right? But recently there has been a saying in the stock market saying that the Mag 7 is out and Fab 4 is in. And Fab 4 stands for Fabulous 4, and that includes companies like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta Platform, and Amazon's. And all these companies are having AI leadership in the market, right? So the AI chip makers and AI-related entrepreneurs, they have accumulated a lot of wealth because of these AI crazes and even changing the ranking of the companies, right? So I found that many experts are predicting that NVIDIA will top the rank, the position long held by the Apple. So that means Jensen Huang will get even richer.
Why is it so? Why NVIDIA's future seems so bright?
Because they are making the GPU chip that's necessary for the AI revolution. And I think that demand for that chip will grow more and more as time goes by. Yeah.
Seeing the rankings of the billionaires on the list, we again realize how times have changed. About 2 decades ago, Those on the billionaires list include oil tycoon Gordon Getty and Walmart founder Sam Walton. So, Professor Kim, based upon these change rankings, it is possible to confirm what industry was thriving at the time, right?
Right. So 2 decades ago, there was much more of a focus on oil and just the common retail goods, which is part of the reason why Gordon Getty, the oil tycoon, was considered the richest person in America in 1983, and why the Walmart family, the Walton family, was considered one of the richest families in America. But now I think we're seeing much more of a demand for luxury goods, which is part of the reason why Bernard Arnault is the #1 ranked richest person according to Forbes. So right now, Gordon Getty, according to Forbes, he's beyond the 300, top 300. So he's around the 350th in terms of ranking. And the Walton family is ranked around 18th. So we can see that they have gone down a lot in terms of the list.
One more point we need to check is their nationality. According to the Forbes list, 813 of the 2,781 billionaires are American citizens. 406 are from China and 200 from India. So who's the richest person in India? It is Mukesh Ambani. He recently made news by inviting distinguished guests to the wedding ceremony of his son. So Professor Che, what is the India emerging as one of the countries producing billionaires?
Well, I think India invests a lot in education, especially in math, science, and engineering, and we can easily find some IT experts from India. For example, we have the CEOs of Google and Microsoft are all from India, right? So with these tech-savvy populations, I think India is well positioned to capitalize on AI revolution. And in addition, India is a young country. Its median age is 28, so 10 years younger than that of the China. And also, the India's population is growing. So that means the ratio of working age population is pretty high, which means India's economic growth rate will be high ever after. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's also talk about a country, China. In few countries, billionaires' rankings change as frequently as in China. Familiar names among Chinese billionaires are Jack Ma or Ma Yun of Alibaba Group and Xu Jianin of China Evergrande Group. This year, there are new additions, which include bottled water tycoon Zhong Shanshan and Zhang Yimin, founder of ByteDance, best known for its mega hit application TikTok. Professor Che, does this indicate some political and economic changes in China?
Well, I think in China for the past 20 years, the real estate tycoon were dominating the wealth rankings. But as we've already observed, the Hongda, the Evergrande Group, has declared default, right? And considering that the large portion of the Chinese people's properties are tied up with the real estate, this default kind of created a significant blow in Chinese economy, right? So their domestic demands and consumptions are all slowing down, right? In addition to this, the internet companies are also facing the downturn because of the Chinese government's regulations, right? So by seeing all these trends, it seems like the real estate's power and the internet companies' power are declining. But instead, the companies such are manufacturing the bottled water or manufacturing batteries such as CATL seems to be taking their places. So in my opinion, I think the axis of the Chinese economy seems to shifting from real estate to the manufacturing.
I see.
Yeah.
Female newcomers also joined the 4 billionaires list. Among them, the most impressive one is Taylor Swift, who last year earned over $10 billion through concert tours. Professor Kim, tell us more about Taylor Swift's very impressive inroad into the ranking.
Yeah, so Taylor Swift, as you mentioned, is one of the new billionaires according to Forbes billionaire list. And what really stands out about Taylor Swift is how she accumulated her wealth. So as you mentioned, she made most of her money through songwriting and performing. More than $500 million US of her fortune is from music royalties and from touring. And this really speaks to her soft power as well, right? She has a lot of cultural influence. A lot of her fan base discusses how her lyrics really speak to them and that how relatable they are. And also, she does really stand out because of what her authenticity and her relatability. And because of her influence, there is now a course at Harvard that is being taught on Taylor Swift, and it's called Taylor Swift and Her World. And it's a quite popular class, so we can see how influential she is in both wealth and in culture.
Professor Che, the Forbes list indicates that at least 60% of the billionaires on the rankings are self-made. What does this mean?
Basically, I think the logic of accumulating wealth has been changed over time. So traditionally, the billionaires, I would say, were accumulating wealth by founding or co-founding companies and creating fortunes by driving innovations. But in addition to this type of wealthy people, we have new types of wealthy people who are emerging from the cryptocurrency accumulation. And I found that 17 people joined the Forbes list due to the Bitcoin and other crypto assets trading at record highs. So by considering all these aspects, I would say that the wealth creation is not only limited to running the business ventures, but also extended and diversified to maneuvering the financial strategies.
The trends of wealth naturally change with times. I wonder who will lead the world list of the richest and add their names to the billionaires list in the coming decades. Let's move on to the next part. The United States is facing a crisis due to this problem. Please take a look at the video before we go into the details.
Those trying to cross over versus those blocking them. The situation on the United States southern border has become unmanageable. From children to elderly people, they are would-be migrants trying to cross the border into the U.S. The problem of illegal immigration is nothing new for the U.S., which has long been plagued by unauthorized migrants from Latin American countries. Migrants head to the U.S. because they think they can escape poverty in their home country and find economic freedom. However, some people lost their lives while crossing the border in hope of finding economic freedom. Between January 2021 and April 2023, 124 dead bodies were found along a perilous jungle route in Panama. Last month, 8 Chinese nationals were found dead on the coast of Mexico near a perilous route to the border with the U.S. Recently, about 37,000 Chinese people were arrested while attempting to cross the U.S. border illegally. This is more than combined numbers that were recorded over the past decade. The U.S. is suffering from unauthorized migrants coming from all over the world. The New York City has to spend an astronomical amount of money to accommodate migrants, while public complaints are mounting over security concerns and a lower quality of administrative services. Mexico, which shares borders with the U.S., is complaining that the number of illegal migrants has reached an unmanageable point in border areas. At the request of the U.S., the Mexican government is working to control illegal immigration, but it has not yet proven to be effective. Disputes over immigration policies will likely heat up with the U.S. presidential election coming up. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump is known for harsh policies against illegal immigration.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done.
While in office, the former U.S. president introduced limits on legal immigration and built a 727-kilometer-long border wall. Trump argues for strict immigration policies, insisting that immigrants are stealing jobs from American workers, and the nation's social security is being threatened by undocumented migrants. Incumbent President Joe Biden is embracing tougher border measures targeting illegal migrants. Last October, Biden announced the construction of an additional border barrier, although he previously promised not to build another foot of wall if elected. Biden appears to take into account the public's growing discontent over illegal immigration. The U.S., which is often described as a nation of immigrants, is now struggling to handle the surging illegal migrants. What choice will it make?
In the second part, we'll talk about the immigration crisis in the United States, which is the biggest headache for the United States this time. In the video, we saw undocumented migrants desperately trying to cross over the border wall erected between the United States and Mexico. According to the US Customs and Border Protection, the number of undocumented migrants crossing the US-Mexico border hit an all-time high, over 300,000 last December alone. Professor Kim, what accounts for this surge of undocumented immigrants trying to go into the United States?
Yeah, so I think there are many different reasons why this surge is happening right now. Many of these reasons have to do with ones that have existed from the past, including political repression, natural disasters, crime, poverty, as well as gang violence. But in addition to this, one of the reasons why the surge is happening right now is because of the COVID pandemic. So during the height of the pandemic, there were very strict regulations in terms of the US-Mexico border. But now that some of these restrictions have been eased, now we're seeing the surge happening. But also another reason why is because we have switched from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. And so during the Trump administration, a lot of his political platform was based on the phrase build a wall, which speaks to how strict he was going to be in terms of regulating this border. But President Biden eased a lot of these restrictions, and he was a little bit more soft in terms of implementing these policies. So that's part of the reason. And also, with the elections coming up in November, since we don't know what the results will show, I think a lot of these undocumented individuals are taking this chance right now to
So they might be thinking now or never.
Right.
As well as those from Latin American countries, there is a large number of undocumented immigrants from Asian nations. As we just saw in the video, the number of undocumented migrants from China is increasing exponentially. And some of them even die. During the perilous journey, Chinese people take an irregular route and a life or death journey to the United States via Thailand or Turkey. They first go to Ecuador, a country they can enter without a visa. There, they pay thousands of dollars to local brokers to cross the Darien Gap between Panama and Colombia and travel to northern Mexico, which borders the United States. It's a long journey of about 5,000 kilometers, taking more than a month. So, Professor Jay, we can understand why there has been a surge of undocumented people trying to go to the United States from Latin American countries because the countries are close to the United States. But why China?
Well, the primary reason seems to be the economic factors. Many Chinese immigrants are saying in comment that they are really hard to find jobs in China and make living in China. So in contrast to the China situation, in the United States, we can see its economy is booming, right? And we can find, many job opportunities in the United States. That might be one reason. And the other reason is that some Chinese immigrants were saying that they are seeking for the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech, and both of which are guaranteed in the US. And in addition to those kind of factors, I think the Biden's administration is relatively having lenient policies on refugees compared to the previous government's policies, right? So this kind of thing might have contributed the Chinese migrants to think the US as their next home.
So it's truly a combination of the push factors and pull factors
I think so.
determine the immigration.
Yes.
With these surging undocumented arrivals, Americans are taking the issue more seriously. According to the Gallup survey conducted in February, 28% of Americans named immigration as the most important problem facing the United States. It's more than 3 times higher than the percentage from a similar survey conducted in last August. Immigration passed the economy and inflation as the most frequently cited problem prior to the November presidential election in the United States. So, Professor Kim, wouldn't this fuel immigration phobia, even xenophobia in the United States?
So it could seem that way, especially because immigration is considered one of the most important problems right now. But I do think that this is a partisan-related issue because this is much more of a problem for Republican voters than it is for Democrat voters. And so 57% of Republicans mentioned immigration as a top problem, while only 10% of Democrats mentioned it as a problem. So I don't think that it would be fueling xenophobia more than xenophobia already exists in the United States. And also, President Joe Biden has started to take on different approaches and different policies, and he's taken on much more of a harder stance. But the people and the organizations that disagree with this are protesting against his changing policies. So in that sense, I don't think that xenophobia will be increasing too much, hopefully.
Immigration is a key wedge issue for the presidential election in the United States, which will be held on November 5th. A survey shows that about 80% of Americans are not happy with the Biden administration border policies. The sentiment is similar among Democrats. Trump is attacking President Biden on this front, arguing that the Biden administration is way too soft on the issue of border control. The administration is recently turning to tougher border policies with the election approaching. So, Professor Kim, you said that the concern for xenophobia may be too exaggerated, but are you sure that this issue will not really tip the balance in the upcoming presidential election in the United States? It seems like Biden administration has been cornered.
It seems as though President Biden is trying to find a middle ground between what the Republican voters want and what the Democratic voters want. As Professor Choi mentioned earlier, the issue of immigration has become really politicized, and political leaders are trying to find ways to utilize this issue to gain more voters. And so we're definitely seeing how immigration is becoming an important issue. But as I mentioned earlier, there have been many organizations, so about 130 organizations who have written to Biden opposing what he has been trying to do in terms of taking on a harder stance related to immigration. As a result of that, I don't think immigration phobia will be increasing too much. There has been increasing anti-Asian sentiment since the start of the COVID pandemic, and there were statistics that showed that the number of hate crimes that Asian Americans and Asians in America had experienced had hit an all-time high, but we've definitely seen that decreasing. So hopefully this issue with undocumented individuals as well, it can be hopefully smoothly resolved.
Professor Choi, if crackdown or hardline policies are not a perfect solution, what alternative solutions can we think of?
Well, I think many developed countries are suffering from the labor shortage due to the decline in the birth rate and the aging population. So I think welcoming the foreign immigrants might be the remedy for that problem. So considering these circumstances, I think we need to expand the pathways for legal immigration, and that would potentially decrease the undocumented immigrants being in place, right? And the other way might be the government promoting the multiculturalism and value the diversity as part of their national identity. And I think it's important to embrace all different cultures that immigrants are bringing inside the country and try to coexist with them. And in addition to these approaches, I think we can make another different alternative solutions. And one way is to eliminate the root cause that are making the migrants being increased at the first place. One of the reasons that the migrants are leaving their countries because of the economic hardship. So if we can provide some international aid to those countries, then maybe, hopefully, the immigrants will not feel compelled to leave their home and go to unfamiliar country. It's always a very tough decision to leave everything, your home place. Right? Professor Kim, any word of wisdom?
I completely agree with everything Professor Choi has already stated. I think also, as we were talking about earlier, the issue needs to stop being politicized, especially because when it is politicized, there are very negative takes on immigration. So as Professor Choi mentioned, accepting immigration and accepting multiculturalism, I think, is the first step. Trump in the past had implemented the zero tolerance policy, and there were a lot of issues related to this because of the separation of families and other issues. So hopefully, if we can kind of overcome these issues that had shown up in the past related to these undocumented individuals, I think that would be the first place to start.
Despite concerns and discontent among American people, nearly 10,000 undocumented immigrants are now seeking to cross the border into the United States every day. Anti-immigration sentiments are growing in the United States, a country that is often described as a nation of immigrants. At the same time, the voice calling to listen to undocumented migrants who have to take a life-risking journey is also growing. It's time to wrap up the program. Professors, thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching and goodbye.